G'day folks, ZiggyD here. 0.2.0F patch just dropped for Path of Exile 2. It's the midweek one that we were waiting for since the end of last week. That one is here now, and it is a big one. A fairly unassuming name for such a big patch. It brings respecking Ascendancy classes, so you can now respec your Ascendancy class if you go into a trial of the same caliber as to what you're up to in terms of how many points you have right now. So that means if you have all 8 of your Ascendancy points, you do need to go and do it in an endgame one. You can't kind of just quickly do a respec in a really low level Trial of Secumus, for example. But ultimately that's pretty fair, because if you did it once to get your Ascendancy, it should be pretty easy, if not easier, to do it again now that you have it. So getting that respec in was a little bit of a surprising change, given how resistant they seem to be to allowing that in the game, but we have those respecs now, and you know, you ritualists can change to an Amazon and whatnot, and we'll see how the play counts change on PoE Ninja for some of the classes now that that is available. Up next is a huge suite of charm changes, starting with belts. We finally get implicits for charms. So belts level 30 and above now have 1 to 2 charm slot implicit, and belts 60 and above have 1 to 3. So there's a bit of variance in there as to whether you get lucky with that implicit. And this only does affect new belts that you find from now on, so your pre-existing ones won't work. They didn't mention even being able to divine it, so I don't think it'll add the new affix. So your old belts are, you know, they're stuck as they are. Conversely, the explicit modifier that adds charm slots that we have now, so for example, my belt here with its +1 charm slot, that doesn't exist anymore now that it's effectively been moved to the implicits. I was pretty excited about this change when I saw that it was dropping. I purchased a bunch of Black Scythe artifacts and exotic coinage so that I could go to Turgeon and see what sort of charm slot belts I got. So he's given me access to a fine belt here. Ooh, I like that. The stun is not all that good, although there was some stun changes. Maybe it'll be enough by itself with the stun changes. Add a prefix and make rare. Yes. Let's go. Add another prefix. What do we get? Oh, we got 30 cold rares. Fill empty affixes. Fine. Let's see what he does after that. Reroll the prefixes. I'm pretty happy with those prefixes. Let's skip that one. Reroll modifier values. Go ahead. Hey, that's not too bad. I've actually been running 3 charms for a little while now, using a belt slot and one of the passives on the tree that was just 2 passives, and I felt like it was actually pretty good payoff for the level of investment. But now you can have those 3 charm slots potentially for free. So there's going to be a coming change that's not out yet, I don't believe, that will allow you to have up to 6 charm slots. So right now, if I put this on, I should have 4 charm slots. Small correction on the charms I just noticed. It's they've kind of like reworked how it works a little bit, so you don't just kind of get 1 charm implicitly now. When it says has 2 charm slots that you meet, that means you have 2 charm slots. I discovered this when I respec'd the Hunter's Talisman node, so if you want the full 3, you want to get one of those 3 roll implicits there. I was confused by that because I was thinking of it as like a +2 charms, where it was, you know, you have to. That makes sense, actually. I thought it was a little weird that we would likely be getting 4 charms just by having a belt with 3 charm slots on it, but that's obviously not the case. They've also massively buffed the guard, life, and mana recovery affixes on charms, and they also buffed the duration of the stone charm. Now, I don't believe these changes are retroactive to these ones. It's possible. It looks like the stone charm one might well have been retroactive. Yeah, because it was changed from 2.5 to 3 seconds base, and I've got the increased duration there. So that looks like that was improved. But these affixes here, for example, are not going to work. And since we don't have alteration orbs to just spam those, we'll have to find some new charms. So maybe worth adding those back onto our filters until we find some nice ones. But these were pathetically embarrassing before, like 3. I had 3 mana when used. Because I have it here, you can actually see what the new modifier is. This is possibly even a low tier one, but it's, as this is, what, item level 22? So it should be 16 to 24 while leveling. So that's, I don't know, what, 10 times stronger almost? So it looks like some pretty major buffs to that there, and we can see the equivalent item level 42 guard gain I have here, which 50 I thought was not bad, honestly, is now something like 150 to 200. So I'll have to wait and see when PoEDB data mines those, or when we see a good supply of them on the market as to how high they end up being, but presumably the higher item level rolls are much higher than that as well. So I expect maybe like a 100, 200 life recovery or something on charms would be something that felt a bit more impactful. So I look forward to seeing that, and pretty stoked about charm changes overall. Hey, I can actually just use this belt. Amazing. I think it's an upgrade. I think it's actually an upgrade. Not to mention I can save 2 passives. Yeah. Look, I'm cap resist. Oh my god. Also, can't believe the crafting worked. What? Next up, they have added new stash tab affinities, finally. So I can put socketables on here and just have them automatically go into my dump tab. Now, there's obviously not a, like, Rune tab added to the game just yet, but that is on its way. But now at least I don't have to do this awkward scrolling. Why did you not go in there? I think they might have to fix it. It looks like the this has been a thing as well, where they're not like, these aren't recognized by the crafting bench either. So it looks like the adept runes, yeah, the adept runes aren't working, so they'll obviously have to hotfix that one. hopefully they'll get that done soon. But so that we have the synergy, the affinity for that. We also have fragments, which includes tablets and trial keys. So now we can set up a synergy for what have we got here? I don't see a specific one for tablets, so it's all kind of lumped under fragment as far as I can tell. These must effectively count as fragments. Let's see. So if I shift those over, those do indeed go over there. So those guys go in fragments. So it looks like I'll probably do a mixed tab of like Jin barriers, ultimatums, and tablets now, which at least is far better than having to scroll between these guys and manually sort. It was literally the most aggravating thing in the game for me right now. They also finally added affinity for breach as well, so these random catalysts that I was just throwing in a dump tab as well won't have to go in there. And expedition, there's still not an expedition locker, I don't believe, but I should be able to at least set up a tab specifically for expedition now as well, although I don't mind just kind of putting them in my currency tab, to be honest. And the other one that was missing was ritual, so that's, I guess, mostly for your omens, which if we put ritual on here, it should now dump the omens in that tab for us as well. Great, fantastic. Now this next change is phenomenal, but they added a bookmarking system finally to this, and it is better than I expected even. It comes pre-installed with a player marker. This is available from a foldout here, a home marker, and I don't know what this undiscovered one is yet. I'm guessing it's something that I will discover. But there's also an optional checkbox here for edge display, and you can jump to any of those that are sitting at the edge of your screen. So you see everything's up here for me. If I click on one of these, this is one of the ones I set up here for the Copper Citadel. It just jumps straight to it. So you can click those on the very edge of your screen there. So I can jump to this iron one, I can jump to me, or you can access them from here as well. So I've tagged a unique map here, Calandra map. I've tagged these ones. Soon, making a video. And if you want to tag something, like you find a unique map or a particularly juicy map that you want to, do some tower, come back to when you do some towers or something like that, or one of those interesting modifiers, you can just right click the actual node and input a name and select an icon. So we can do that there, and then it adds it on, and easy enough to remove it. Literally perfect, right? Super happy with that. I can't think of anything I would change about this really. So super happy. Maybe like when it gets to the point where we have many, it seems like there's a limit of 16, so perhaps that will end up being an issue once you're like really deep in late game. I feel like 16 is going to be enough for most people, but I do wonder about the limit if it's, for some technical reason or something like that. An unlimited one with a search box would obviously be better, but I think this is probably going to cover it for most people. Another really good quality of life changes, the lower tier runes will now stop dropping as you go past certain level thresholds. So when you get past level 31, you won't see any more lessers, and the regular runes will stop dropping after level 52. So you'll only see the greater ones in endgame. So phenomenal. They got rid of a lot of that trash that was kind of filling up our inventories and all of that, and really reduced those click counts, which I am always a big fan of. They also finally added sockets to scepters as well. So now wands and scepters and all of those, staves and etc. can all have various socketables now. Not everything has a socket effect for things. So these ones still say like wand and staff. I don't know if they're going to get scepter added in the future, for example. But right now it seems like scepters have kind of been penned at being a little bit unique. So the scepters mostly seem to have access to these ones here. So you'll see these are all specifically scepter modifiers now. So instead of just being helmets, now you can also get some ally auras from all of these to enhance your scepters with further, which is a really cool change. Overall, big fan of the changes that have been doing towards the Scepter stuff, increased spirit, yo. And that'll be local. And presence area effect stuff is pretty interesting stuff in there. I like what they've done with the new socketables and making these things a lot more interesting and expanding them to spellcasters. Spellcasters just got a nice buff like mid-league out of, you know, the addition of these, for example. So really nice improvements there. And everyone basically has access to some pretty cool socketables now. A lot of people are noticing since the ailment changes this patch that light stuns have been a real issue. With a bit of investment, you were kind of able to deal with it mostly, but there was times where I was getting stunned by stuff that was just like random white trash mobs that really shouldn't be doing anything. And that has been addressed, so they've reduced the capacity of monsters to light stun you, especially in QoL and endgame. Lowering the amount of stun damage that they deal and increasing the minimum threshold they have to get to actually stun you. So that alone is going to help, but they also further reduced elemental chaos and ranged stun damage. Wanting to be stunned to be more of like a big melee physical hit is the thing that stuns you, which makes sense, right? That's kind of the sort of thing that should be stunning you. So those random little projectiles that are just chipping away at you really shouldn't be stun locking you. So that's going to be a big help in general. I would expect you still want to invest in some sort of stun, but it might just be, you know, 2 points and a charm and you're good to go. And hopefully that's the case, because I think that's a nice place for it to be potentially. Recently, they've been doing a lot to make endgame Pinnacle bosses much more approachable, easier to give an attempt by adding things like multiple attempts to them and making it so that you now don't lose XP when you die to them, for example. And there was still an issue though where like once you located one, if you did end up blanking on it, it was really hard to get it again. It was really expensive, or even finding it on the Atlas could be really painful. But now they've actually just given difficulty 0 Pinnacle bosses unlimited respawn attempts. Phenomenal. So psyched about this change, because I really think that a lot of these, unless they're like really special Uber content or something, a lot of these should have a way to effectively risk-free learn them the first time around. I still think there's major problems with like side content and the Atlas tree progression and kind of like how top heavy this stuff is. The fact that you like don't start getting passives until you beat Pinnacle bosses I think is lame. There should be some progression on the way there, but I think that stuff's going to get expanded out in the future. But for now at least, actually getting those first sets of passives and learning the boss mechanics and practicing it and seeing what they do is now just risk-free. You can go in without fear at all. Like, I guess the worst thing is that you just die 50 times and say, oh, I'm never actually going to be able to kill this thing, and I don't know, maybe you get a friend in to help or something. Pretty easy to miss in these long patch notes as well is the fact that they have done some further nerfs to the speed of monsters, and I'm very psyched about this one as an evasion player. They have nerfed a lot of the really problematic kind of monsters that were stunning us and avoiding our evasion and things like that. So we'd had some conversations on stream about the idea that some of the most scary things were just these like random soldiers wielding a two-handed mace, because their attacks would counter stun. They'd do an overhead swing and you wouldn't evade or block or anything like that, and you would just take a massive hit and they would one-shot you unless you had like well over 2.5k HP and some other mitigation. A lot of the time they would one-shot you. With any damage modifiers on the map, you were dead. They have adjusted the damage of things like the Goliaths, the Stone Sentinels, I noticed those a lot, the Azak Brutes, the Azak Stalkers, the Undead Valguards. These are the ones that I had noticed. So they're all on the list there. Pretty excited about that. So that's a big buff to any evasion characters right now. You're going to be getting killed less by the things that aren't signaled effectively, because like these were just little attacks from little tiny monsters. They're not like big signaled slams. When it's one of those guys wielding a giant statue that, you know, slams down, then that's kind of fine. You get hit by that as an evasion character, then, well, you deserve to take some damage. But these little guys were a real problem, so I'm really excited about that change. There's a bunch of other monster changes in there as well, like adjusting the behavior of some of like the venomous crabs and things like that, which I felt like were pretty problematic as well. So some pretty good improvements across the board there. There's tons of bug fixes and also a bunch of buffs, most of which were kind of mentioned before, things like Shard Scavenger getting a new effect to reduce grenade cooldown and stuff like that. Totems in particular got a pretty big change where they are getting a huge resistance buff just for free. So as they level up beyond level 13, they start getting resistances now. So they should hopefully have a bit more survivability in the end game. And the Ironwood support got buffed as well. So if you're playing a totem build, you might want to check that one out now if you're still having some survivability problems with your totems after this change. Another cute, great little quality of life change here is they added borders to things in the vendors. So I hope this applies to the rituals. I haven't checked yet, but you can see little yellow or blue borders around each of these items to see what they are without having to mouse over everyone. So just a little thing, but I was really happy to see that. Oh yeah, and my favorite change. As a big shrine enjoyer, those things were really hard to click. There's like a weird animation that you have to do. You kind of have to get like right beside them. this line in the patch, shrines are now easy to click on. Amazing. So what's missing from the patch notes? Well, there's not really too much about loot here. There has been a few buffs to a few things. It seems like breach hands, for example, actually dropping splinters now, which is fantastic. But overall, people are talking a lot about loot and reward level of the game, now that a lot of the other things have been addressed, like the campaign difficulty and a lot of the endgame quality of life stuff, and a lot of the stuff that they've done here, that's opened up the floor for kind of the big pressing thing that's left bothering people at this point, which is that the game just doesn't feel rewarding enough. And loot's been a bit weird. Sometimes I feel like I'm certainly getting more than I was in 0.1, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's in a good place. And it's erratic as well. Like sometimes you are having these maps where they're not really dropping anything, and it's not that it's a cleansed map or something. I actually find the cleansed maps pretty good a lot of the time. I tend to get a bit of currency from them. And when things align well, it works. But you're getting a lot of situations where it's, you know, you're opening the currency strongbox with a bunch of quantity and rarity, and it's in a juiced up map, and it just drops transmutes and augments for the 50th time that day, and you're thinking, why? Why is this like this? Or, you know, when you kill a rogue exile and they drop all blue items in an endgame tier 15 map. So there's obviously some issues there, and this patch doesn't touch too much on that yet. Jonathan was on a podcast, Drop Frames, just recently, and he did touch on loot a little bit, from what I've heard. I haven't had a chance to check that one out yet, but he did mention that, like, the wisps weren't working in the way that they want them to. And after testing the wisps myself, I can certainly verify that they're not really very worthwhile right now, unfortunately. But yes, if I'm hoping to see anything at this point in the weeks while I'm away playing Last Epoch potentially, then that would be some, you know, changes to rewards. I'd also love to see improvements to endgame progression, but those two things potentially tie in with each other. I feel like if we were not having to start getting passives when we're finished endgame, but rather getting things on the way that made endgame more rewarding for us, then maybe this wouldn't be so much of a problem. But right now, you have to get all the way to tier 15s and start killing bosses there and start doing like Pinnacle content and stuff before you really get too much that you can do to make your Atlas better. And especially because you're incentivized to go around clearing these nexuses. I love the new endgame systems, but it does mean that it's a lot of time of mostly focusing on progression, which means you're not really getting loot while doing that. I hope to see similar to what we got in 0.1, where they kind of do a pass over certain things and say, okay, look, a strongbox like this should always drop something that's like at least an Exalter an Alch, or a boss should always drop this, or a Rogue Exile should always drop at least 1 or 2 rares and things like that, right? I'd love to see like a kind of a baseline pass on things like that. And then certainly some progression improvements that allowed us to have a bit more spicy loot moments while progressing through the endgame, not just when we're at the end of the endgame. To finish on a positive note, though, I do have to mention that I've kind of been loving the unique strong boxes for the most part. A lot of them are very fun, especially the gambling box where you throw gold into it. I ended up getting Perfect Jeweler's Orb from there, which I haven't had one of those drop naturally, so that was a pretty exciting moment. I see people getting stacks of 10 Divines and things from them, and I even like just the little one that is a bug that crawls around and gives you some jewels. So the unique strong boxes are good. I'd like to see more stuff like that for sure. If only the regular strong boxes were a bit nicer. Anyway, really cool patch. I'm super excited for Last Epoch in just a couple days, but you know, the quality of these patches and how much I've been enjoying the end game recently make me wish that Last Epoch wasn't for another week or two. I'm sorry, I know a lot of you are really excited for it. I'm excited for it too. I just kind of wish there was a bit more gap for me to enjoy both games, because it's hard to chop and change right now when I want to be playing both so badly. Anyway, this is you know, very much a first world problem, right? Oh no, I have too many good action RPGs to play. Woe is me. That's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.